Before we get started with the first warm-up on Spark Up, I'd like to hand over to Professor William Swinton from Temple University, who's going to tell us a little bit about the background to this event and also give us an academic perspective on what sustainability means. So Professor Swinton, over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As was mentioned, I'm William Swinton, and I'm on the faculty of Temple University. I'm also on the board of ACCJ, and so I'm happy to see these organizations getting together. At TUJ, we started in 2019 a sustainability roundtable. And we have been bringing together executives, advocates, investors, consultants, and academics to look at, what is sustainability and how can we promote it and promote, critique, and assess it within business. And so we've been having a number of events, and we're happy to partner on this event. We'll send out some information perhaps later, but on April 19th, we'll be hosting Mark Elder to talk about the US climate policy and the Biden administration. And on May 24th, we'll be talking about sustainability and how to measure it and how we can keep companies accountable with Dr. Philip Sugai of Doshisha University. So our aim is to have a platform of discussions coming from various definitions of sustainability. I think everyone, as they kind of throw this word around, has various depths into which they go. So we're looking at each of the different disciplines that are addressing sustainability. And I'm very happy that today, co-sponsoring with BCCJ and ACCJ and TUJ, that we can broaden this conversation. I've been talking to my students in my senior seminar about the importance of projecting trends and the impact on trends and their impact on the future. But this is particularly fraught in an era of COVID, of the type of supply chain interruptions that we're seeing even today in the Suez Canal, and in an era of increasing impact of climate change, but therefore all the more necessary to look into the future about how these things will do. So in today's discussion, as we think from a career and an organizational perspective, we're happy to be involved with this, and we're very proud that a TUJ student and a BCCJ intern, Trevor Hempstead, has been involved in bringing these organizations together. After all, it's his future that we're talking about. So I look forward to a very vivid and interactive discussion today. Thank you. Back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Professor Swinton. And it's a real delight to have you here today. I've joined some of the round tables that you've hosted, and it's been really fascinating just seeing or hearing from people in very different areas of sustainability. It is so broad, it's evolving so quickly. It's exciting, but it's also, I think, a little difficult for people who are thinking about working in sustainability to know quite where to start. So I'm hoping we can give some ideas on that today, but also for people who have already started their careers to look at actually how can they incorporate everything that's happening and all that we're learning about both the environmental and the governmental side, or environmental and social side as well, into what they're doing day to day. So really great to be having this conversation. Thank you. All right, so I'd like to, for everyone who's just joined, we are using something called Spark Up today, and you can find the link in the chat and you can see it just coming up on the screen. And what we're going to do now is ask you all a question. So this is a question to you in the audience. One word, what does sustainability mean to you? So please just go to the Spark Up platform now and pop your word in there. And then as everybody is putting their word in, we should see that coming up. It'll begin to build a word cloud for us. Ambiguous, accountability, here we go. And if you like the look of a word somebody's put in, you can put the same word in, that's going to get bigger. So we can see in real time, future coming up very strongly there, as Professor Swinton was just talking about. Mindfulness, longevity. This is really window dressing. That's an interesting one. Renewable. Intimacy. Future proofing. So there's a definite theme here. Future's still very much front and center there. And in a moment, when we kick off the panel, I'll ask the panelists to perhaps comment on this. So if you could just be thinking what's coming up for you as you're watching these words, that would be wonderful. Really interesting to see people coming at it from different directions. Resilience, awareness, connected. Wonderful. Okay. All right, we're slowing down a little bit now. So I think it feels like a good time to start moving into the panel. So I will briefly just introduce the panelists, well, just by name, and ask them to introduce themselves. And then we'll come back to this word cloud and have a little look at what their feelings are when they're looking at what's coming up here from the audience. So our panelists here today from some very different organizations. We've got Heather McLeish, Director and Global Client Executive from EY Japan. We have Robert England, Executive Practice Leader from NWorld. Naomi Takase, Talent Acquisition Director for LVMH Japan. And Tsuyoshi Domoto, Co-founder and Representative Director for Youth Who Code. And so what I'd like to do now is maybe just ask each panelist to introduce themselves very briefly. I've just given name and title, but if you could tell us a little bit more about what you do and how it relates to sustainability, that would be fantastic. So Tsuyoshi, why don't I start with you?
Sure. Thank you very much, Tova, for that very kind introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Tsuyoshi Domoto. Feel free to call me Yoshi. And I currently serve as one of the co-founders and the representative director of Youth Who Code. We are a nonprofit organization based here in Japan with a mission of increasing opportunity and access to technology-based education to all youth, especially focusing on those who are underrepresented in the STEAM fields. We wish to make a global impact in the future. So right now, a lot of our events and our projects are Japan-based, but hopefully by the end of the year, looking into next year, we'll be able to make an international impact to ensure that all kids, regardless of their backgrounds, have access to a quality technological education. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Yoshi. So if I could go next to Naomi, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Naomi. I work for a company called LVMH. It's a leader in the luxury industry. I'm originally from New Zealand. My father is Japanese, and I've been in Japan for about 19 years. At university, I studied sustainability, so that's where my interest came from, but I hadn't been involved in any sustainability projects for most of my career. So today I'd like to share a little bit about how I'm involved in some projects now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Naomi. Look forward to hearing about that. Okay, if I could ask now, Rob, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for the introduction. Sorry for my delay and panic to Sarah. Yeah, I work for the executive search team over at NWorld, and we work on leadership roles across a variety of industries, so senior executives across there. And our involvement in sustainability is I realize, multiple. But really, thanks to Tova and her partner Gavin, that we got involved in it in a little bit more detail than normal. But most of our clients, it is, when we're talking to the senior level, it is on their agendas, obviously, and something they ask us questions about, which we realized that we could get access to more information for them. What are companies doing? What should it look like? And as a result, it has sort of turned into beginnings of a new industry for us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But thank you, and look forward to talking to you about it today.
Thank you, Rob. Brilliant. And last but by no means least, Heather, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here today. I have the distinction of representing both the BCCJ and the ACCJ here today. I'm a member of the XCOM for the BCCJ and the new chair for the Sustainability Committee for the ACCJ. So my work with EY has focused on really, for a long time, very specifically building a sustainability advisory. So I helped build our Japan practice here. There's about 900 people worldwide at EY doing sustainability in that practice, and has actually grown further as we expand that work. My work now is focused on the global business development of one of our Japanese insurance companies. So I look after everything we do for them, but I have also a very special hat that I wear that focuses in-depthly on what we do from a sustainability perspective. So the risks and opportunities in different industries can be overwhelming for companies, and the responses to it are myriad. So I'm very excited to join my other panelists. And again, thank you to ACCJ, BCCJ, TUJ, all of these Js, and specifically to Trevor Hempstead, who this was his idea, and he is the reason why we're here today and why we get this great opportunity to speak to you. So, absolutely kudos to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Heather. And yes, very much, this has come from the younger generation in the BCCJ. And so, it's really wonderful to see people like Trevor, reaching forward and saying, look, let's talk about this. We want to know more. So here we go. So going back to the word cloud that we were looking at, people from the audience, Heather, I'll start with you, have been bringing up these words. Christopher, are we able to share that word cloud again, just so we can see what it is? And Heather, what was sort of coming up for you as you were watching that word cloud develop? Was there anything that you were surprised by, or anything you thought, yep, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense?
Well, first off, let me say that this is always a great exercise, because whenever I'm in a room of people and we're talking about sustainability, I first have to define what sustainability is. And I can do this with sustainability professionals as well. What does sustainability mean to a waste management specialist as opposed to somebody who does human rights work? It's very different. It's a huge umbrella. It's a broad umbrella. Definitely want to talk to that person who wrote window dressing, because we got a skeptic. I like skeptics. We got a skeptic in the crowd. But most of the words that I saw there are words that come up. But you can notice there's a real divergent group there. Some of it it's intangible. Some of it seems a little more tangible. And I think this is one of the challenges in this industry as well. This is a growing and changing industry. I don't think we have everything right yet. And that's why it's a great time to be in this industry. As long as you're comfortable with change, you're comfortable with redefining KPIs, with redefining the way we talk about sustainability and throwing out what we did yesterday. So that's what I see here. I think it's really, there's some great ones. The Band-Aid person too, I'm going to be talking to you as well. But really, really interesting comments.
Brilliant. Thank you, Heather. And just on that point of talking to people later, one thing I didn't mention at the beginning, sorry, is that after the panel discussion, so we'll run that for about sort of 40 minutes or so, 45, seeing how we're doing for time. Then we'll have a bit of Q&A. So as Christopher said, you can keep putting in your questions onto the question section in Spark Up throughout the event. So depending on the question, we might incorporate it as we go along or wait until the Q&A at the end. But we're also from 6 going to be doing breakout rooms with the panelists, when you'll actually get the opportunity to speak to them live. And I'm sure Heather would love to speak to the person who said window dressing and have a conversation around that. So please feel free to keep these questions coming in. So if I could move now to Tsuyoshi, you're working. So you've recently sort of started this MPO, Youth Who Code. Before that, you were the country manager for Saturday Kids, also involved with younger people in technology and coding. How does that connect for you to sustainability? And what are you seeing in this word cloud here that perhaps really connects into that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tova. So yes, like what Tova just said, I right up until last week, actually, I was serving as the country manager of Saturday Kids, which is a for-profit programming school for young children here in Japan. And for me, one of the reasons why I decided to start Youth Who Code was because obviously coding or STEM education is becoming very trendy. A lot of parents are interested in it. A lot of schools are interested in it. But however, from my position, I felt like it was missing a clear direction or a purpose. And so one of our taglines here at Youth Who Code is code for impact. Meaning, don't just learn just for the sake of coding or just because your parents are telling you to do so or society expects you to do so. Like, use it as a tool to better the world and better your peers. Use that as a tool for empowerment. And that's why when we just hosted our recent hackathon last month, we made sure that the themes were all aligned to a specific SDG. So that A, the students would learn about these SDGs indirectly through our event, and B, all of these projects that the students got together and worked on extremely hard had an end purpose that would, serve the benefit of their communities or their schools or the environment. And so, I really hope that, in the near future, we can make sure that, sustainable practices are more integrated within education so that it's not just a separate field, but students sort of learn about sustainability through the projects that they do, or as something that is more ingrained in their curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So purpose is so vital, isn't it? Without that, we're just doing it for what, as you said. So I love the idea of kids thinking about the good that this can do and how they can really build on that. So thank you, Yoshi. Naomi, can I come to you next? So I'm fascinated. You're working now as talent acquisition director in LVMH, but you studied sustainability way back. So, and then looking at all these words coming up, and as Heather was saying, there are so many things you can do with this. What comes up for you as you're looking at those words that people are saying and hearing what the other panelists are talking about? What comes up for you there?
Yeah, I'm really glad that the biggest word was future, because for me, that's my word for sustainability. It's what I would have chosen as well. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I just think, when she gets older and in her world, if she looks back and she says to me, what did you do for me to save the planet? I want to be able to say, I did this, and I want to be able to come up with concrete answers for her. And I don't think that having a job that's not related to sustainability, I don't think that that's an excuse. So although my role at LVMH is talent acquisition, which is mainly looking at recruiting and hiring young talent for the company, I don't think that that's an excuse to say, oh, I didn't have time to play my part in looking after sustainability or the environment.
Brilliant. I love that. And speaking as a fellow parent, I can really relate to that as well. Thank you. All right. And Rob, what about you? What jumped out at you there? Was there anything you think you would perhaps add in that wasn't there, or? What are your thoughts?
No, I think everybody who Heather jumped on the window dressing one already, but the timely article over the weekend by Matt Rich sort of got people thinking about greenwashing. So I think that was really interesting. Similar to Naomi, I think future family, but again, speaking personally, there's also a business opportunity there. But I think the one that I liked and I believe has to be part of this is accountability. Accountability part, which everybody in their job, not just those who are designated to do the role of CSO and beyond, but those people who are involved in their day-to-day, they have an accountability to start looking for and finding areas where they can be, addressing some of the issues that come up. And I think that to me was the word that stood out.
Brilliant. Yes, absolutely vital. Without that, then it's very difficult to measure any progress or know really that what we're doing is making a difference. So thank you, Rob. Okay. Looking at companies and industries, so sustainability is, as Heather was saying at the beginning, very, very broad. It affects different industries in different ways. So Naomi, perhaps I could come back to you first for this one. Luxury sector, how is it being impacted, particularly by sustainability, by this shift? I mean, we can't really call it a trend. It's much, much more than that. It's a necessity. But how is it impacting your industry?
Sure. I think a lot of people don't expect LVMH to be environmentally conscious or to even have programs that are running to do with sustainability, because we make products and we sell products. But I think it's really important to know that because we're such a big group, we have more than 75 brands that we operate, and we're in 70 different countries. And just the scale of the organization, I think that we have the responsibility to be a world leader in everything that we do. And it's not so well known, but we started the environmental division more than 27 years ago in LVMH Paris. They do very, very high level things, such as monitoring the CO2 emissions or the traceability, these types of big things that are way above my pay level. But then, because we are a company that has a culture of making sure that each member of the company is able to voice their opinions or be part of something more than just their job scale, we are able to have communities. And that's something that I started 3 years ago in LVMH. So on the 25th anniversary of our environmental division, they had this event in Tokyo. And at the event, I was drinking wine with 2 other members. I think one of them is on the line here listening today, Yoko. And, we were drinking wine and we're just saying, wouldn't it be nice if we could do something here in Japan? What could we do? So we met up the next week over drinks again, and we were just chatting about, different ideas, brainstorming ideas of what we could do. The 3 of us started the LVMH Sustainability Community for Japan, and 3 years later, we now have more than 93 members in the group, in the network. And we do things like organizing charity events, or we implemented waste reduction guidelines. We have multiple different initiatives that are going on in subgroups. So we don't do anything big scale like the Paris team, but we do things that we can be involved in, and we get the full support of the management team. And I think that's the type of thing that you can do within a corporation, even though your main job may not be sustainability. It's something that you could do is put up your hand and say, listen, I'd like to start up this network, or I'd like to roll out this initiative, or I'd like to get rid of the vending machines in the company, or I'd like to get rid of the waste bins underneath each table, something small like that. And it's really made a difference.
Brilliant, thank you. And I remember hearing about, your story of getting rid of the first vending machine, and how, difficult that has been to negotiate with the whole building management and overcoming all those obstacles. But
Yeah.
what a fantastic achievement and like you say, it's not a huge thing, but it's a very significant step that I think can really make people stop and think about what they're doing and the impact. Wonderful, thank you. So if I could go to Heather now, how is this? I mean, you're working now with a major insurance company. You've been working in different parts of EY. How is it impacting your organization or your industry as a whole?
Well, it's really interesting. And first, let me say, when I first got into sustainability, so middle of 2015, great year for sustainability. We had COP21, and we had the Sustainable Development Goals replacing the Millennial Goals. So 2015 was a fantastic time. And I kind of stumbled onto sustainability through business development. I'm a business development professional. That's what I do. I grow businesses. And I had this opportunity to grow this business. Now, at that time, there were very deep level experts in sustainability, but not everybody was talking the same way that we're talking today. So there's been people that have been doing this for 20 years. There's been investors who have been investing ethically, their version of ethically, for 20, 30 years. A lot of old hippies and doing these things that are value-based, right? The industry has changed so much. And with the industry, we get a community dialogue has changed. We get the way we work in our offices is changing. Now, whether that's a top-down, bottom approach, whether it's a lateral approach, is very, very different depending on where we are in the world. So for EY, it's been a really interesting journey. So from a global perspective, we actually became carbon neutral in 2020. We're going to be carbon negative in 2021. And our goal is to be actually net zero in 2025. That is, we were the first of the big four to announce this. This is really important to us. But a few years ago, when I went to speak to the heads of our EY Japan, they're like, cool, how is this going to affect our audit business? We're not that interested. Probably more of like 4 or 5 years ago. Now, everybody's on board. Now, why is everybody on board and what's the big change? One of the things that I would like to believe, but I've also seen, is that companies find the benefits of sustainability very appealing. How do we attract young people, for example, to come to EY as opposed to coming to KPMG or PwC or Deloitte? And if you don't know the difference, I don't blame you. I know we all look the same. We have different corporate colors. We're cooler. But one of the competitive advantages that companies are realizing is that a lot of millennial people are getting into their jobs and saying, this company looks good. The job looks interesting. Do they match my values? Does this company that I'm going to spend 8-10 hours of my day every day, do they match my values? Does my applying my life force and my energy to this company help further my other aspirations? So a lot of companies like ours looked at that from a very practical perspective and said, goodness, we have a competitive advantage to viewing sustainability, not just as something we have to do to supply the compliance team with the numbers that they want, but there's a benefit to it. And I think it's the benefit set that has really changed the dialogue. We've known for a very, very long time that we're damaging the planet. We've known for a very, very long time that not every human has the right or the actual equal human rights that they should have. None of that is a surprise. Absolutely none of it. I grew up as a kid hearing about acid rain in America. That totally dates me because I know we don't talk about that now, but if you heard the acid rain conversation, right? All the young people are like, what's that? So none of this is new. The way that we're talking about it is new. How companies are actually internalizing it is new. And that is furthering the dialogue. And it's just like Naomi said, it's people that are actually in the company saying, okay, well, we don't have this. Why don't I start this program? I can do this. There's other like-minded people here. We don't necessarily need our CEO to say this is what we're doing, but let me tell you, all the CEOs are listening and the boards are listening. And that's really powerful.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Wow, there's so much that we could take out of that, and we've got a very limited time, I think that links very nicely into Rob and what you're doing. So, I mean, you're talking to many different organizations on a day-to-day basis. What are you hearing about the way that the thinking in the organizations is shifting? And, how is that affecting what you do?
Yeah, thank you. I think, listening to everybody so far is without covering the same kind of things. I mean, CEOs, obviously, or country heads, whatever the senior executives are in Japan, and obviously they're being directed from APAC or from global, the agendas sometimes get mixed up a little bit, but I'm hoping that, a global agenda will cascade down to all the other companies. I think the biggest thing is for people to really understand what it is they need to do. And then from where we come in, so who actually is going to do it? Now, to touch on a point that Heather has made and Naomi as well, I mean, a lot of the roles get driven by people's own personal agenda, personal passion, and therefore people end up doing their own job plus additional piece, which is the sustainability part, and they champion things rather than having a job title which suggests that they are in charge of the sustainability program, or they're in charge of, I mean, in HR you see a lot with D&I, and only some of the big companies have a specific dedicated D&I person to run diversity and inclusion projects. It usually sticks with HR, and it's usually a tag on to something else they do. So it's not their real day-to-day job. And unfortunately, that's sort of a theme that we've seen over the last couple of years, where people are involved in CSR and it's a company-driven thing, but no one really is given it as a full-time job. They're having to do twice as much work to get that done. And I think that's where even no matter how much passion you have for it, that there is a tendency for those kind of projects to get put to the side, or they don't follow through on a project as much as they'd like, because they tire themselves out. So more importantly, the companies that lead the way are providing these roles for the right person. And if you just look at some of the job sites, if you look at LinkedIn as a particular area, you'll see a number of jobs being posted, not that many, a handful of jobs. And the key here is around, how would people get into them? How would people get there? I mean, as Heather said, she stumbled into it over time. Not everybody has a university degree that is related like Naomi. So, have environmental degrees or environmental capabilities, or even degrees in sustainability practices, engineering, health and safety issues, for example. I mean, these are not necessarily long-term popular degrees that people have been involved in. And maybe over the last 10 years, more and more, but very few people in Japan would have that specific education background, and therefore, they politely added, or similar, or what I wrote down a phrase that people use quite a lot with their, or specific another field which is associated other field. So it's a sort of a bit of a cop out in that case. But I think they need to do that because there's not enough qualified people, first and foremost.
Yeah.
The other thing that people need understanding of is how senior these levels are going to be. But if you're driving any campaign within a company, you really need to have a seniority about it so you can get people to listen to you. Is my understanding and the frustration of a lot of people. So the actual salaries that are involved with the sustainability jobs specifically are not where they would need to be to attract the most capable or the most talented people. And therefore, and I think someone in the crowd, Chris Smith, sorry, wanted to get something from this, which is how would that be driven internally? I think, passion to do something will allow people to take notice. And if you have passion, and your passion derives from your own personal and from the company's support to get you onto these training courses, and then it's some kind of, it's very hard for people to come in and have a mentor that has done it all. So indeed, companies are struggling to find an exact person who can lead the way, lead the charge, and therefore then sort of put people's jobs that are specific to that role in Japan, compared to, say, in the US. If you look at people in the US, there's a lot of very matured roles that have, health and safety, CSR, sustainability practices, and that's the struggle for a lot of people. So finding the right people with the right qualifications over the people that have the energy and the passion to want to be involved in those, but don't really know how to do it. And again, that's where companies like yours, Heather, come in, I believe, and yours, Tova.
Yeah, absolutely. So
can I just jump in on that just for a quick second? Because Rob and I have had this conversation before. I mean, the comments that he's making right now are very specific to Japan. But if you look at other areas here in Asia Pac, for example, the development is actually getting a lot faster. If you look at Europe, just as Rob said, Europe and US actually much more advanced in some ways. It's really Europe that's going to be the most advanced. So the roles that you're going to start to look for, chief sustainability officers and people that are reporting directly to board level, to all of the C-suite and board. Like this is where a company that's actually serious about sustainability, that's what you're going to see. That transition is starting to happen in Japan. Rob's exactly right. It's right now people wearing 2-3 hats in many cases, but that's also changing. I've seen a lot more roles which are focused here on getting that talent in. And again, Rob's exactly right. We don't necessarily have the talent here. So how are you going to compete with that? So 5 years ago, when I was looking at CVs to build my team, I hired most people from abroad because we didn't have the skills here. That is not the same today. I've got lots of people with university's degrees in sustainability, but zero experience. So if you're, junior and you're really looking for a job, there's definitely like many opportunities, but that doesn't mean if you're more senior that you don't. So exactly as kind of Naomi said and Rob said as well, if you've been putting the time in, if you've been building internal programs, you also have a history of business experience, you can still build a career in sustainability. So it's so broad, but Japan is changing really fast on this. So it's a great time to have the conversation. Sorry, I just had to jump in on that. Rob, you know how excited I get about this.
No, and that's brilliant, Heather. Thank you for. So it's interesting. I mean, we're seeing the impact hitting the top of companies and the type of roles that are becoming much more visible there, as Rob was explaining it, and Heather as well. But if we go sort of back to the other end now, we've got Temple University involved today. I think we've got a lot of students and younger people in the audience as well. Yoshi, if I could take it back to you, what is the generational shift that you're seeing? So, you're heading up Youth Who Code now. You founded that yourself. There's a real entrepreneurial mindset, obviously, that required to do that. You're also part of One Young World Japan, where we've got a lot of conversations going on with young people, not just looking to work in organizations, but actually start their own initiatives, organizations as well. What are you seeing? Could we hear from a younger perspective what you're seeing there in the shift, and what are people of your generation and coming behind you really looking for?
Yeah, thank you for that, Tova. Right before I answer that question you just posed, I just want to very quickly comment on what Heather and also Robert had mentioned earlier, because in my previous career before Saturday Kids, I was actually working as a sustainability consultant for PwC. So sorry, Heather, not EY, but I have a lot of respect for your organization as well. And I remember that when it comes to a lot of Japanese corporates, a lot of the sustainability initiatives are being led by either marketing or the CSR division. And immediately that tells you that they're doing it just for window dressing, one of the key themes that were mentioned earlier. And one thing that I really respect about, I would say, some of the leaders in the sustainability field, like Unilever, for example, one of our One Young World partners, right, is that for them, it's a sustainability is led by a business division, and it's integrated within their practices. And that's when you know that a company is taking these issues quite seriously. So, so yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And to answer your question, Tova, I think that the world is definitely gravitating towards the right direction. Like, I'm super excited every time I talk to my students or some of the young curriculum developers that have that were part of Saturday Kids, who are now, who I may hire in the future for Youth Who Code, because for them, sustainability, environmentalism, like, these are topics that are innately important to them, that they're innately passionate about. These aren't things that were taught to them by an adult. They grew up like wanting to live a sustainable lifestyle because that's where the culture is headed. Like, if you follow a lot of the Instagram influencers, right, that these youths respect and follow, you can see that a lot of them are promoting products that are sustainable. And so it's quote unquote cool, right? And I think, that that's actually quite helpful because a lot of these youth look up to these influencers, right? And also there are a lot of role models like Greta Thunberg, who is really well respected and also admired by the teens. And I think it's really, role models like her that helped, the Japanese youth sort of come up with that movement. What was it? I think it was before COVID 2 years ago, where they all got together in front of the UN building and raised their voices and enacted change. Protests are very, very hard to come by in Japan, yet there was a group of youth that did that, and it was very, very admirable. So yeah, to summarize my point, I think the culture is definitely headed towards the right direction. I think the youth is definitely going to change Japan. And I mean, not just in Japan, but youth around the world is definitely going to be the biggest change makers when it comes to sustainability. So I'm super excited. Yep.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for that, Yoshi. And absolutely, I mean, the biggest word we saw at the beginning in that word cloud, as we said, was future. So that makes a lot of sense. Trevor, can I bring you in at this point? Are you there, Trevor? Can we see you?
Hello, everybody.
Hi, wonderful. So I know, from the student perspective, you wanted to start this event. What questions do you have to the panelists from a student perspective?
Well, I just firstly want to say thank you to all of our amazing panelists and moderator for doing such an amazing job so far. It's been, from my perspective as a student, I've definitely learned a lot already. One thing that I kind of been hearing a lot about is that there's been quite a bit of mention of how the youth are going to, be a very big changing factor, and how we want to advertise our companies to attract good talent and stuff like that. But from the student perspective, how can we develop ourselves? What kind of skills are you noticing that the companies kind of want to help develop sustainability within their company? That's something that's been really on my mind throughout this whole panel. Maybe Heather, you can start us off with that.
PowerPoint. For the love of God, you learn how to use PowerPoint and Excel. Learn how to use it properly. I can't tell you how many times. No, I think from a student perspective, one of the things that you want to get really good at is utilizing technology and having an agile mindset. And if you can do that, you can do any field whatsoever. So what a lot of companies are looking for, not just mine, I'm a huge network of people, and we're always kind of trying to trade, people that we know for roles we think might be suitable for them. But from a sustainability perspective, this is a growing field. So I work for a big accounting firm. I get a lot of auditors, career auditors, who want to change their life and do something more meaningful. And I'm like, that's super cool, but I'd rather hire Trevor, who's been studying this for 4 years, even though he doesn't have any experience, right? So brushing up on all of your skills, like if you're new and junior in your career, you need all of your basic skills and make sure those are very good. But also watching this field, understanding what's coming out and how it's augmenting and changing. If you want to become an accountant, it's very set. Of course, accounting standards change and whatnot. You have to be very comfortable with change. If you're the sort of personality that wants to have a role that is very defined and very specific, sustainability at this point in time might not be the right place for you, because it is going to grow, it's going to change. My challenge is, I mean, Tova, maybe it's the same for you, but some of my assumptions I had 2-3 years ago about the best way to approach certain sustainability problems have changed, because we get new evidence, new ideas, I get new tools for my toolkit. So that agile mindset, it might sound like you're probably thinking, oh, of course we have that. But once you get deeper into your career, you sometimes start to lose that. All of us mid-career people right now are reminding ourselves we need to do that. We need to do that. You're going to come in with those ideas, staying up to date on sustainability trends and seeing what's happening. What are corporates doing? What are leading corporates doing? When we see a corporate doing something better than us, and one of our team members have said, hey, did you know your competitor is doing this? We could probably start something like that here. And honestly, choose a company where you think you're going to get heard, because a lot of companies you might not get heard. So that's a tough one. You don't know that necessarily straight out, but looking at their values, I think, is hugely important.
Thank you so much. I really liked what you had to say about staying flexible. It's something that maybe students have a lot when we're studying and we have all these great ideas, but who knows if we'll always keep them. And also we have a lot to learn as well. So there's that too. I would like to also send that same question over to Naomi as well. Working in HR, I would wonder about your perspective as serving in the luxury sector for that question.
Sure. So at LVMH, we just started increasing the number of interns that we hire per year. We started this last year. And the very latest intern that I just hired was for a sustainability project. The person needed web design skills because they're going to be making an in-house website for us so that we can share our sustainability projects across the group. But this type of job, when I advertise it, I only advertise it for 48 hours because I get too many applicants. For example, the last job posting I did was out for 48 hours and I got 47 applicants. So you need to be super quick. You need to be always on the lookout for interesting internships. And if you do apply for internships, make sure to tell the hiring managers, or in the interview, make sure to say that you're really interested in sustainability. Because even if the intern is for a marketing division or an HR division or a sales division, you may also be able to be involved in projects in sustainability at the same time.
Thank you so much. So when I go to any interviews or try to find any internships, I will be very diligent, and I will also express interest in sustainability as well. Make sure
Definitely.
that's crystal clear. Thank you so much. I think that's all for me for now, Tova. I'll hand the mic back over to you. Thank you again, everyone, so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Good question, Trevor, and wonderful answers. So a lot to think about there. One thing we'd like to do now, Christopher, if I could ask you to bring the sort of spark up thing back up. We've got lots of great questions coming up here. So there's a question at the top there. We have 17 SDGs and 169 goals. Pretty overwhelming. That's an awful lot. And often companies think that's sufficient. Pick the ones that are excellent and closest to their core business. Oh, thank you. Just make it a bit bigger. That would be good. I can make my screen bigger. So when we're thinking about the balance of projects, right, how can companies commit to the right ones? We've got especially about the biosphere there, but I mean, all of these are incredibly important. Let's go to Rob. What are your thoughts? I mean, from the recruiting industry perspective, you know, are you talking about SDGs a lot? What's going on there? What are priorities for you in your industry?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I think, in honesty, no one is really looking at any one of those specifically. No one's coming to us saying, oh, you know, we're looking at, as you said, 17. So there's a lot of them that need to be focused on. And I think sometimes that's overwhelming, and they don't really know, if their company doesn't sort of focus on a particular area or where they should start. So I think what we advise people is to think about, talking to companies like yourselves. You need consultants to be able to give you like a roadmap of what you can do, where the alignment is easier for you to be involved. And to be honest, a lot of people find themselves looking at that the D&I piece, which is the most easy one, and people saying, well, that's where we can focus. Let's do that. So I think, to answer your question, I think we're not hearing this enough. And I think that still there's an education piece that needs to be there. All we can do is just try and push them towards people like yourselves, who can come in and do some formal education on what their company should be looking at long term.
Yeah. Now that's interesting, isn't it? You talk about education there, and I think, as Heather's made the point sort of very well earlier, this is all evolving so fast. It's very difficult to know where it's going. And as Professor Swinton was saying at the beginning, we really need to be watching the trends, working out what is going to be impacting our particular industry or organization to understand where we need to focus. But there's an awful lot to learn. And just when you think you've learned it, more stuff seems to come up. So it's a constant sort of challenge to keep up with that. Could I go to Yoshi for that one, sort of talking about education and educating communities, not just within organizations, but people more broadly. How are you approaching that with your organization? So you talked about purpose a little bit before, and how you were getting the kids to focus on what is the purpose of learning coding, for example. But when you're speaking to, say, that the parents who are bringing their kids to your coding school, what is the conversation you're having? What are people seeing as priority? What's the general level of awareness, which was another key word that we saw coming up in the word map?
Okay, so I would say that our end goal is never to sort of nurture the next Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. Like I don't really care about that at all. But if a child graduates from one of our programs or enrolls in one of our activities or events, comes out of it and says, wow, well, this world's such an interesting place. Like I'm more curious. I'm more innately, interested. I want to find more about this world. I want to learn. Then I feel like as educators, we have done our jobs. And so I'm not sort of pushing kids to sustainability. However, if that is an area they want to explore, then that's awesome. Then we want to provide the resources and mentors for them to sort of explore that field to the best possible limit that they can. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm answering your question there, but for us, it's really about helping kids to achieve or expand their innate potential. I think that's our biggest sort of role as educators.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think that's interesting, going back to the example that Naomi was sharing earlier about herself and her colleagues sort of starting that initiative within LVMH. I mean, it's about the mindset, isn't it? And taking responsibility and ownership of this. It doesn't have to be in a specific sustainability role, but it's looking at what can I do in the context of what I am doing at the organization. How can I influence and move the conversation forward? So yeah, like you said, it comes from that mindset and understanding the connections there. Thank you, Yoshi. So I'm very conscious now we are at 6 o'clock. A few people have had to drop off, and we're moving towards the networking time. So if we can just come back to the screen. So the way this is going to work, we've got some breakout rooms set up with our esteemed panelists today. And if you want to speak to them more, I know there are lots of questions coming up on Spark Up there that you perhaps would like the opportunity to take directly to those panelists. You can see the breakout rooms there with the name of the panelist and the sort of industry. You should be able to click on that and join. Is that correct, Sam? Am I getting this right on the tech side?
Hello, yes. So we have 5 different breakout rooms, each with a panelist. So we have consulting with Heather McLeish, education with Tsuyoshi Domoto, luxury with Naomi Takase, recruitment with Robert England, and university with Professor Swinton. So if we could ask the panelists to jump into their correct breakout rooms at the moment. And the way this works is just, you should be able to see a button at the bottom of your screen, or if it's mobile, just tap on the screen, and I think it's the top left. Click on breakout rooms, join a room. You can go there and you can come back. So feel free just to switch around a little bit and just to get a flavor for the different conversations going on.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And just 2 points to mention before you disappear into the breakout rooms. So as Christopher has just put in the chat, you can still access Spark Up while you're in those breakout rooms. So you can have a look at the questions that are coming up if you want to remind yourself of what you said or want to ask anybody else's question. And timing, Sam, we're, I believe, going to open them for how long? Around 20...
Yeah, so
20 minutes?
About 20 minutes. So we'll broadcast a message just to give you a 3-minute warning before we close and bring you back.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, feel free to hop into your breakout rooms now, people. Is that okay, Sam? All ready to go?
Yeah, I can see people jumping in already. If anyone can't find their breakout room, just let us know and we'll move you into there. So just send us a message on chat.
Okay, thank you very much. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good opportunity to talk to the panelists and perhaps each other in those breakout times. I know the breakout rooms, I know the time always goes very quickly. So just to wrap up today's event, I'd like to ask each of the panelists just for any final comments, perhaps overall on what we've been talking about, but if they want to pick up on anything that came up in the breakout room discussions as well, that'd be great. So just a few final words from each of you. Could I perhaps start with Yoshi, please? Yoshi.
Okay, so I was actually just communicating the same message to the people in my breakout room, but you know, this is a event made by Trevor, right? Trevor was the one who led this whole initiative, and so I think it's important for me to sort of leave my final message to the youth, the young students who are on the call, and for you guys, you know, I just want to say that wherever you are in life. Even if you're still confused as to not having found like the path or your mission or your calling, it's okay. It's totally okay, you know. I'm 32 years old. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, right? And interest always leads to passion. And so if you're interested about something, explore that. And one day it may or may not turn into your passion, but at least you're going somewhere. At least you're heading somewhere. So I just wanted to, just let you guys know that it's completely cool if you haven't, quote unquote, figured, you know, your path or your way out. That's all for me. Thank you, guys.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Yoshi. Well, it took me 20 odd years to find sustainability, so I can totally relate to that. Hopefully not everyone will be quite so slow. Thank you. If I could ask Heather now, please.
Yoshi, dude, honestly, like, why do you need one? You don't need just one passion. Come on, guys. My partner and I talk about this all the time because we're interested in everything. And actually, you know, we're all hopefully living longer. You don't need one passion in your life. So don't get so stressed about that. I'm delighted that we're having this conversation today. I've been passionate and excited about this topic for a long time, and meeting other people that are passionate and excited about this topic gives me hope for the future. Tova and I do a lot of great work together on the BCCJ board. We've got our directors and executive directors, Sarah and Lori, who are super keen on this topic. ACCJ is now super keen on this topic. 4 or 5 years ago, and when I actually first took the job at EY, which was very specific on sustainability, most of my friends, I was coming from a private equity firm, most of my friends thought I would be hugging trees for a living. I don't hug trees. I'm not one that likes to get dirty. They didn't understand what it was. And I think now there's so many more people, and it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. So when you think about sustainability, think about the area of sustainability, not all of it. Think about the one that appeals mostly to you. Is it human rights that fires your imagination? Is it environmental issues that fire your imagination? There's so much work to be done in deep, deep areas that you can, there's not a lot of space actually for broad-based people. Like we definitely need deep level expertise. But if you can't get the role that you're looking for now, that's, as Naomi said, first off, I thought that was brilliant. It's no excuse. No excuse. Start the program that you don't have. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Heather. That's brilliant. And that segues nicely to Naomi. Could I go to you next, please?
Sure. It was a lot of fun to be on this panel today. Thank you very much. And it was nice to meet people in the breakout rooms as well. Yeah, I'm not a sustainability expert. So when Trevor contacted me first, I nearly said no. The reason why I said yes was, first of all, because I thought Trevor was amazing. I really want to support young people. I think that if they have the confidence to put up their hand and say, listen, I haven't organized this type of event before, but I really want to do it because I think it's important. I think that's our jobs to also support these young people and play our part as, I don't want to call myself old, but as an older senpai, I admit I am now at the age where I have to look out for the younger generation as well. And I think that even the students, they have younger people underneath them that they can also help to inspire. So if university students are asked to speak at high school or secondary school events, I'd really like them to challenge that as well. And I think for a career, if you are interested, just talk about it. I think you just need 1 or 2 people to share your vision. For me, it was Yoko Maki, who's in this call today, because if she wasn't there on that day drinking wine with me, I don't think that we would have started the sustainability community. So, you need supporters.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. So keep talking about it. The more people, the better. And you never know what can happen. Thank you, Naomi. And Rob, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, again, great to be on the panel. Happily to be here. Finally, sorry for the delay at the beginning. Listening to everybody there, I mean, I was asked a really interesting question by Trista around, the size of company and, the impact that you can have. And I think that, leading on from what people have said, you have a passion, you can find your purpose, join a company on the merits if you have the capabilities, the experience, or the qualifications to go into a sustainability role, fantastic. But those, as we said earlier, not voluminous and happening in Japan. But I think that, finding a company which has a sustainability program, or indeed not having one, but have desires to go there, somewhere you can go in and show your enthusiasm, be entrepreneurial, try and drive agendas within that. When you're looking at a company, what are the opportunities that could exist? Make sure that when you're interviewing, you say what your passion is. Don't wait for the interviewer to ask you, are you interested in this? You should be leading with those types of things when you're talking about who you are, what you represent. And I think then it's down to the companies to have that accountability to say, look, we need to do these things because it's for the future. And the other point I wanted to mention is we're talking a lot about young people. Obviously, that Trevor got everything done here, fantastic. But as an older person on this, I mean, I've got young kids, and we have a responsibility, we have accountability to them. So I'm advising people where possible, where they can pivot their roles and they can learn something new, because I think a lot of people made a point around you know, the skill set you're looking for, if you are good with digital, if you are good with PowerPoint, as Heather had mentioned, or if you're good at these things, but sustainability is not an area you've worked on, but that's a passion, then there's nothing stopping you from reskilling and retraining. And, you know, hopefully the roles will start to come. I see the beginnings of that happening, and the next few years we'll definitely see more and more of those roles come up, and we'll be driving that with companies. And the second thing is those roles have come up in a salary bracket that it makes it more interesting for people to sustain their own lives by doing that, rather than having to work twice as much by tagging it onto what they do everywhere else. That's my thoughts anyway. Thank you again. Thanks for helping. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know we're right up on the time, but if I could briefly ask Professor Swinton, you opened up at the beginning, giving us your thoughts there. Any final comments from you?
Thank you very much for all involved in this. It's been exciting. I think that we need to work on this from a number of different levels, whether it's the governmental level, of national and local, business level, community involvement, and also as individuals, as individual employees. And if we can take that from every perspective, I think we will create the future that we're all looking for. Thank you so much for having us here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And on that note, a very big thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. We know it's on a Monday, on an evening when I'm sure you've all got lots of other things to do, but thank you. Huge thanks to TUJ and ACCJ as well for being part of this. Of course, to Trevor for sparking this off in the first place, and for organizing really a large part of all of it behind the scenes. So thank you very much, everybody. We will be following up with a survey that's on SparkUp, so do let us know your thoughts on there. There were so many great questions that came up that we didn't have a chance to get to. We're going to do another event, but we really want to know, what do you want as the focus for that? So please fill in the survey, take a few moments, and we will hope to see you again at the next one. For now, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you very much.